Welcome to Sickcast, brought to you by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jasleen Kaur, and I'm a researcher here at Sikh. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Sidak Impact podcast series. I'm joined here today by Ikroop Singh. Fateh Ikroop, how are you?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm doing very well. Excited
Okay,
to have this conversation with you.
great. Yeah, me too. So I thought maybe we could start by you sort of telling people a bit about yourself, um, and why you decided to attend Civic and maybe what led to your decision to take the track that you took. And then we can get into first impressions.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's gonna sound kind of cliche, but I feel like Saki 201 was like made for me. Kinda. But yeah, my name is Ikroop Singh. I'm from the Northeast. I'm from New York, USA.
Yes.
And so growing up, I would say a very educational Sikhi background. I was
Mm.
blessed to be able to, be surrounded by my siblings and parents and family members who were able to teach me a lot about Sikhi, and not just about Sikhi, but about other cultures and religions as well. And I was able to go to a lot of camps. And as I got older, um, I felt that like the one thing that I didn't like about some camps is like I would attend for sometimes, let's say a week on end, right? And I would leave and I wouldn't be able to recall anything that I learned, right? Like I wouldn't be able to remember anything, right? I don't know if it was for lack of sleep or for what reason, right? And then I went to a camp in Michigan last year in 2024 called Siana Youth Retreat, and Sant Birvirji, who's from Sidak, was actually there. And he gave what I thought at that point, up until that point, was the best class I've ever sat in my life
Wow.
in terms of Sikhi. And the reason I really liked that camp is because they had structured the classes very well. So it was like going in, they told you that you were going to have this class, this class, this class, this class, this class, and you're going to learn this, and this, right? And so going into it, I already knew that he was going to teach us about the post-Guru period and like the challenges that the Sikh Panth faced, right? And so for me, like one of the things that I always love about Sikh that keeps me close to Sikh is learning about history, especially recent history. Um, and so I already knew I was going to enjoy it, and like walking away from that, I could still recall like specific things that he had taught us then. Um, and then later in that summer, my cousin and another friend of mine, they had went to Sidak,
Yeah.
and my friend told me that he thought that Sidak was life changing, and he thought that I had to go. Specifically, me, I had to go one time in my life, and he said I had to take Sikhi 201. And so that's the reason why I went and took Sikhi 201. But yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really great. Yeah, so for people who don't know, Sanbir Singh is the track lead of Sikhi 101, and also a researcher at Sikri. So that's really great that that was like kind of a like an intro to a personality at Civic that made you want to come. And then also word of mouth, which is a classic thing. But yeah, I guess it's really crazy for me to hear other people say that it's life-changing. I feel like it's life-changing. It was life-changing for me. Yeah, I came for the first time to Civic in 2012, the summer before college, and I kind of came being like, hopefully this will give me some foundation on which to
Mhm.
like stand when I'm kind of floating through the world of like young adulthood.
Yeah.
Um, and so I felt like it was that for me, but I think that some of the stuff that changed for me, it didn't become apparent until like much later down the line.
Hmm.
Um, but we can get into that later. I'll try not to talk too much. I think I wanted to know like what your like pre-Civic sort of feelings were. I'm wondering
Hmm.
if there were nerves or sort of I had a lot of imposter syndrome. Um, and just like anxiety, but that's also like my personality. So part of my personality. So I wanted to know like what's going through your mind in the like months or weeks leading up to like kind of touching down in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And how did you feel when you got to Khalsa Center?
Yeah. So I had actually wanted to go to Sidak kind of since like 2023,
Oh,
but
okay.
every time when I would fill out the application, right, this is for people who are filling out the application now, you should just try to fill it out in like a sitting or two, because what I did is like I started it and then I would like procrastinate it. And then
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, like 2 weeks in Vancouver seems like a lot, right? And then last year I was like, actually maybe 2022 was the first time I wanted to go, but last year I decided, like gotta go now, right? This is my time. I have time this summer. I gotta do it. And so I also last year, or what was that, 2025, I went to Civic with another friend of mine from my hometown, who took Sikhi 201 with me. And we had told people, like we had told all our local friends, the local Sikh community. I guess the Sikh community at our Gurdwara was pretty ingrained. So everyone knew that, these two kids are going to Civic.
Hmm.
And a lot of people who had went in the past were telling us their experiences, right? Both positive and what they thought were negative, right? And so some people were telling us like, like I remember one of my friends told me like, oh, I went and I did a presentation on this. And they didn't like a present that I did a presentation on this specific topic,
Hmm.
right? So like you have to be very careful with what you say.
Hmm.
Then they were like, oh, and then I also heard like, oh, like they think a very specific way. Like you don't want them to change the way you think,
Hmm.
right? So, but like on the contrary, I also heard people say like, oh, like I loved being challenged to think a different way, right? So it was a lot of mixed views. But we were actually surprised at the amount of people who were like, oh, like be careful, right? Like you don't
Hmm.
know. Like most of these people have never went. They've just like heard like, oh, 2 weeks, you're gonna go for 2 weeks in Vancouver, like. You don't know, like
Bro brainwashing,
you
yeah.
might, yeah, you might come back like with completely different views, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like going into it, I was like, I had like, I don't know, I wouldn't say I had many expectations,
Hmm.
but yeah. Also, this is a personal anecdote. Probably not sure if I should be sharing this, but I got in a car accident the night before Sidak. So like I was not really thinking much about Sidak. I was like
Oh my
just
God.
I just hopped on the flight and went. But I think that it worked out fine. Everything is good. I was healthy, so
Oh my God.
But
Well,
yeah, I would say going into it, like we had a lot of people tell us like, oh, be careful, but it wasn't something that like deterred us or made us nervous in any way. If anything, it just like neutralized any expectations we had. So we went from expecting things to having no expectations, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, glad you were fine. Good to
Yeah.
know that. Second of all, I do think that actually that sort of pre-Civic experience is really interesting because I mean, before this, for the listeners who want a little behind the scenes, you and I were talking a lot about kind of like different schools of thought and
Hmm.
people becoming kind of like the ways that we become cliquey in our schools of thought or in our
Yeah.
sangats or whatever. I think it is interesting that like people who hadn't come were like, well, this is what I've heard and like be
Hmm.
careful.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that like there are sort of quote unquote camps, although people listening should know that like we don't really call Civic a camp, we call it a leadership retreat
Hmm.
because it's sort of designed to, yes, like push you to think differently, but also one of the things that I've talked about with other Civicers in previous podcasts is like an often like a point of frustration for a lot of Civicers is that people aren't telling them answers to things. Um, or are like only pointing them in a direction where they have to like kind of come up with their own
Hmm.
opinions. And so that like tension is interesting to me. Like I think I've always had a sense that like any Sikh org or any Sikh org related program is going to have a particular like a reputation amongst people who like maybe haven't ever gone or like have gone and maybe they didn't have an experience that they liked. But it's cool to know that you still came. And I wonder then, like, how you felt like the environment was, um, not just with like your fellow civicers, but with your facilitators and how like your relationships with the people who were there. whether it was like your friend who you had already known or
Mhm.
new people kind of contributed to whatever your experience ended up being. Yeah, I'd be curious about like what actually
Yeah.
happened.
I think to answer that properly, I kind of need to touch on like, so I said that I didn't have any expectations going in, but I did have like goals that I
Yeah.
wanted to accomplish. And I think like, so like one of the main reasons why I still went, regardless of some people saying that, is because it was Sikhi 201, right?
Mhm.
Because I didn't know as much about the environment of Sidak, but I knew I had the syllabus of Sikhi 201. I knew it was something I really, really wanted to learn. And
Mhm.
so I think this kind of touches on the first question too that I already answered about why I took Sikhi 201. But like me being the person I am, right? I spoke about this before. Like I love learning about recent Sikh history, and I want to become better at analyzing it. I want to become better at learning it, and I want to learn things that were between the lines that maybe everyone doesn't know, and
Mhm.
that right. And I think that we can like history always repeats itself, and I think by learning from our history, I think we can become better Sikhs and help the Panth in the future. And at that time I'd started trying to get back into reading. So like I liked reading a lot of Sikhi books and seeing the syllabus and seeing like, okay, we're gonna have to read and analyze all these things, right? And seeing like, there's also I think there was like goals of what we'll
Mhm.
be able to accomplish throughout the syllabus.
Yeah.
Like I was so sure that Sikhi 201 was something that I wanted to do where it was like even if the environment is not like the best, I'll still go because like I really want to do Sikhi 201, right?
Huh.
Um, but the environment was great, so like it worked out fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think arriving at Civic was interesting feeling. Like I mainly I convinced my friend to come with me because I was kind of scared of going alone,
Mhm.
right? I think I'm that type of person. I think a lot of us are those type of people who are like we'll rarely delve into something new on our own, right? Especially if like going, across actually to a different country, right?
Yeah.
And on the opposite coast, right? I didn't want to do that by myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so uh, I remember we get there, we meet everyone, and we're just like kind of confused because like again, we have like no real expectations. We're like kind of confused like what to think, right? We're like talking to some people who are younger than us, some people who are older than us. And again, like it's like you said, it's not a camp, it's a leadership retreat, right? So like in my head, I'm trying to compare it to camps I've been to,
Mhm.
but like one, the demographic is not comparable. Two, like the environment is not comparable, right? Like I don't think it's comparable in any way. And then we go outside the airport and we see the bus that says Khalsa Center in Punjabi on it or Khalsa School, and we like get all excited and we start taking videos. And then on the bus ride, we were thinking like we were like super unsure of whether or not this was the right decision to come to Civic. Like we were like I what is like we didn't know what to think. We were like, what is going on? They were like, these people seem nice, but they're like interesting. Like everyone here is a very interesting person, right? Like
Huh.
maybe this is gonna be a long like 2 weeks. This might be tough, right? And
Huh.
so for the first like 2 or 3, like the first 2 days, I would say, um, probably until Saki 201 actually started, we had that same mindset. We were like, yo, like this is like we don't know if we made the right decision coming here, but then all of a
Mhm.
sudden on like the third day, like the switch flips and you're like, yeah, like this is like everything makes sense. And I say that because like I think the reason why we were so uh, for lack of a better word, uncomfortable in the beginning is
Mhm.
because you're there with 59 other random people who you've never met before.
Yeah.
And that in itself, for anyone, even if you're the most sociable person of all time, is gonna feel uncomfortable, right? And I
100%.
think and I think that was the most uncomfortable thing about it.
Yeah.
Which is something surprising that we didn't really think about going into it. Like we didn't think like, oh, it's gonna be an issue, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like when you realize like how like everyone there was genuinely eager to meet someone new. Like it wasn't difficult to have conversation with new people there, right? It's not like
Mhm.
you have to like sometimes going into social interactions, people will be like, oh, how do I really want to approach this person? How should I approach it? Like I think I should network with that person. How should I do it? It
Yeah.
wasn't something like that. I feel like social interactions came very easily. It was easy to make friends.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I think like the more we started just being around each other and having conversations with each other, um, the more we settled in. So yeah,
Yeah. I think that's a
I think
great.
that answers the question.
It definitely answers the question. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm I am like a notorious introvert and have had to train myself to be more extroverted because I am a
Mhm.
facilitator. And but I do think that it's an important point for people who are thinking about coming is like that initial couple of days can be a little overwhelming because there's a lot of people to like meet and talk to and you're kind of in this like limbo of not having had your smaller tracks meet yet.
Yeah.
So it feels like too many people to meet in such a short amount of time.
Hmm.
Um, but I think as the time goes on and you're like spending like quality time with people,
Yeah.
whether it's like talking about coursework or like just talking about things that have been on your mind outside of the courses and the tracks, I think that the like bonds that I've seen come out of Civic have been really beautiful. Um, and like I'll just say like most of the people who like did kirtan at like my Anand cottage were Siddhikars that I met in like 2022.
Oh, wow.
Um, and it's like when you can have that Sangat, because I know you grew up with a lot of Sangat.
Hmm.
For me, it was the opposite. So
Yeah.
coming to Siddhik and really having like bonds that felt like they were deep, um, like made such a big difference for me even though I like met these people as like a facilitator. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I can actually these are people I can go talk to um who are like my age and thinking about similar things and won't judge me if I'm like, what do you guys think about this? Or like, can you help me think through this thing that I'm struggling with? Um, and I've moved across the Atlantic to the UK and I still have that Sangat, which is really nice
Hmm.
because also just like being really far apart just by nature of like you've all come together for those 2 weeks, we're like used to meeting on Zoom. And so that's really helpful for me. Um, no, that's really good to hear. I think going back to what you said about like that actually was the most uncomfortable part is just like kind of calibrating for the amount of people that you were meeting.
Yeah.
I do wonder too, like whether there were moments that did push you out of your comfort zone outside of that, of like moments that you felt like you were challenged, not necessarily like it doesn't have to be, oh, I was challenged in like a discussion or challenged in a
Hmm.
classroom setting, but like when you were challenged because you maybe thought you couldn't do something, or like we've had people talk about like taking a hukamnama for the first time, which I know maybe isn't what you would say, but yeah, any moments where you felt like challenged or like you could feel yourself growing in a particular way.
Yeah. I think the most challenging thing for me, this is a very personal answer, and I don't know if many people will be able to relate to this, but
Okay.
was like being on my own for 2 weeks.
Huh.
Uh, and I think like the whole of Civic, right? Like, I think like maybe like time management or like I don't know. Like, I feel like the whole experience was challenging in a
Huh.
sense, but not in a bad way. It was challenging because like I was on my own and it was like,
Mm.
even though I had a friend with me, but it was like I was on my own and I was doing things. It's not like you're not working on things that you're going to work on while you're at home, right? And you're not with people who you're with at home, right? Like it's not like, oh, I have this question, let me ask my mom, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I have this question, let me find a new person who can help me answer this question and can give me the same advice as my mom, maybe, right? So it's like I think that was the most challenging thing. Whereas I can't think of a specific like action, like like maybe doing a show with or something like that. But for me, I feel like it is the whole experience.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
No, I think that's like, I don't think that's like too personal or too unrelatable. Like, I think that for anybody spending that much time on your own, even like in Sangat,
Mhm.
but like with new people, is challenging. And I also
Yeah,
think that like for you, because I do feel like you're lucky enough to have that kind of relationship of like Sangat with your parents
hmm,
and your family, not having that kind of like cadence of being able to be like, this is on my mind. Let me go ask the people that
yeah,
I usually ask. Um, I actually think that's very relatable because I think there's people who come to Civic who are like me, where it was like, oh, finally I have somebody to talk to about this. And then there's other people who are like, well, I actually have family that I talk to about this stuff, but like let me see
Yeah.
what let me see what my like new peers and like new Sangha for this 2 week period
Yeah.
can help me think through.
Yeah. Another
Yeah.
thing that's challenging is like it's gonna sound funny, but like let's say even if you don't want to ask your parents, like you can't really ask Google there too, right? There's like
Yeah.
you don't have Wi-Fi everywhere, right? So it's like
That's
I think
true.
making things work in like that environment is was in itself a challenge. But
Yeah.
like it's a challenge that I would definitely go through again, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like those experience like those perspectives that you're hearing from those people, right?
Hmm.
Like if I'm asking my mom, like she's not going to give me someone else's perspective, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm only going to get that from talking to them. And so, like I wouldn't say I'm introverted or extroverted. I'm probably somewhere in between. But like
Yeah.
I don't think I'm usually likely to go up to a new person and ask them about their opinion on something if I
Yeah.
have someone I know I can ask, right? And I think
Yeah.
that being a challenge that I was able to overcome was like pretty significant for me. So I was able to
Yeah.
hear a lot
One,
of new insights.
yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to say it. I think I also wonder if like part of that is that in the environment over the like 2 weeks,
Hmm.
you're also like building trust amongst your peers.
Yeah.
Um, because you're like, I don't know you, and then there's some time and some experiences of like just learning together and talking together, and then things start to like open up in a really nice way. I mean, just from the perspective of like being a facilitator sitting in the divans, because our like morning and evening divans are like very conversational. Um, the first like 3 or 4 days at Sidak, it's usually the same few people like raising their hand to speak in the divan because it's daunting. Because you're like, I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm gonna say the thing I want to say the way I want to say it. I don't know if like everybody agrees with me. I don't want to sound dumb. Like there's all this stuff like running through the brain. And then like towards the end, without fail, like those discussions become so much richer because more
Hmm.
people are contributing. And another like really sweet thing that I wanted to point out because I'm remembering it now, another really sweet thing that happened over the course of Civic is that every evening, um, Santhbir Singh would be like, okay, if you want to stay for Sakasan, you can stay for Sakasan.
Yeah.
And by the end, like every day, like there were more and more people staying for Sakasan instead of going straight to dinner. And that just like was a lovely sort of thing of like everybody kind of choosing to be in Sangat a little bit longer together before we broke up for dinner. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that's actually very relatable and none of that was silly, so much
All right.
appreciated. I think I did want to ask one more question about kind of like not challenges, but what your most like what memories stick out to you from Sidik? Um, it can be one, it can be like a few. Um, whether it was like in the classroom during a particular session or whether it was like in discussion with your peers or with facilitators or something that, yeah, happened in the divan or during a meal, anything that like sticks out to you.
Yeah, I think I have an answer for each of those
Okay.
questions. Like I remember one class specifically that I really liked in Sikhi 201, and then I remember one of the discussions like we would do so like the structure is like three classes and then we'll have like a class or a discussion with like everyone, right? I remember
Yeah.
one of those I really liked. And then I'll start with I guess something like personal about an experience with others. I mean, the first thing I really liked is like the fact that we take field trips
Yeah.
in Civic, I feel like is incredible, right? Like it truly makes it feel like that's why it's like hard for me to say that Civic is a camp. Like it makes it feel like if you're taking field trips with those people you're with all the time, it feels like that's like your life for 2 weeks. It's not like you're at a camp. Like that's like
Mm,
you're just like you just moved there for 2 weeks. Like that's what it
yeah.
feels like, right?
Yeah.
And I think I really liked that. I think it was the first one. We went to the Harrison Hot Springs.
Hmm.
That I thought that trip was incredible just because um, I think that kind of forced us to make closer bonds with the people we
Hmm.
were around. Like that's when like I became closer friends with a lot of the new people I met there, right? It's like we went to a restaurant, sat down, had a meal together, right? And
Yeah.
like we were exploring this new town together, right, with people I've never met before. We were like playing rugby on the grass, right?
Mhm.
And so like those trips, and that one especially, like kind of forced me to become closer with people I had just met.
Hmm.
Um, but also like another thing in terms of like personal relationships with people, something that I just remember, which is just like a very simple thing, but like um I like basketball a lot. I play a lot of basketball. I love basketball, right? And so there's like a small basketball hoop at Civic, like right outside the Lunger Hall. And so me and another Civicer, we would go sometimes to play at like 11 p.m., right? And I remember like um he was having a discussion with like two or three others on something. It was something to do with Sakir. I don't want to get too deep into it, right?
Hmm.
But I wanted to like be involved in that discussion, and I wanted to give him feedback, but I wasn't able to, right? Because it was like they had already been going and I was just listening. And so just me and him playing basketball outside for 30, 40 minutes, we had like probably the deepest discussion I've had with someone else who was a new friend to me there.
Hmm.
Just like us doing something so simple as just, shooting around, playing one on one.
Hmm.
And we were talking about, you know, everything we wanted to talk about, right? We were
Yeah.
talking about Sikhi and how it applies in our lives.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then I can also touch on the classes that I liked. So I think in Sikhi 201, the thing that I really liked is like where I'm from and like at my SSA and things of that sort. I was always like the guy like who's gonna explain to you the history of Sikhs in India. I was gonna explain to you the history of Sikhs like all the time, right? Like if you had a history question, you come to me, like I'll tell you, right? So like, and I loved like explaining that to people. But like the thing that I really loved about Sidak is like I don't want to say I think I knew a lot, but like I think I knew a good amount, right? So like, but being coming to Sidak, I realized there was so many nuances and there was things that like I didn't know at all, right? And so the class that I really liked the most was when we learned about the partition
Hmm.
in Saki 201 because
Yeah.
it was like we learned about it from a lens that I would have never learned about it otherwise, right? So like I know what happened to Sikhs during the partition. I know what happened during the partition, but the way that it was taught to us was like, right? It's like we're hearing quotes from people who were like at these meetings, right? And like we're hearing about like who deceived who, right? And we're like learning about like what this meant to families living in Pakistan
Hmm.
and India, right? So like it's like even though I thought I knew something, like I only knew it at the surface level, and I was
Hmm.
able to dive way deeper into it with a class like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I still remember stuff like from that class. I think like I've referenced it in conversation before here and there.
Hmm.
And then in terms of a discussion that I really liked, um, I think there are a couple that come to mind. I really liked one of them being uh, they're both kind of related. We had one discussion on the Sarbat Khalsa and what the
Hmm.
Sarbat Khalsa was, and then we had one where it was like a mock Sarbat Khalsa.
Yeah.
And I really liked that mock Sarbat Khalsa. I was actually talking to my dad yesterday about the mock Sarbat Khalsa, explaining to him what it was. And I was telling him like, oh, I don't know if you know, but your son was like part of the Bunta committee there. Like I
Really
was like
good.
one of the five Jatadas, yeah. But I really thought I thought that was really cool, just because again, right, like even though you do make close friends at Civic, right? Like at the end of the day, it is 60 people. You're not going to become the closest with everyone, and so
Hmm.
those discussions where you're like basically how it works is all of us 60 people were split into five groups, right? Five different Jathed. We're given a description of like these are your viewpoints, you have to defend your viewpoints, right?
Hmm.
So now we're grouped with random people and we're like forced to align our
Aligned.
views with them
Yeah.
and agree with them. So we're forced to get along. And
Yeah.
so I think that was really cool. Like that was like unlike anything I had done before.
Yeah.
Um, and that definitely stands out to me.
That's great. What a comprehensive answer. We love to hear it. No, I think that's really good. I think it will help people who've never been to Civic before understand all of the different ways that like this program
Hmm.
can like can change a person and sort of like um, push us into growth or into conversation because I think sometimes, I mean, at least for me, when I first went, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like be in a class and that's where I'm gonna learn.
Yeah.
Um, but it's often in the like activities or on the trips or in
Hmm.
conversation with each other that like some of the best stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Um, so that was great.
But
Thanks.
yeah, like for me, I think like I was saying, like I was very dead set on knowing I wanted to do Sikh 211, but like for someone who's coming into Civic, if like you look at the three tracks and you're like not that like you're like, oh, I don't really like know if I really, really, really want to do one of these, like still coming to Civic, otherwise like you don't only learn there. Like it's like you're learning 24/7, right? Even like
Yeah,
in your free time, you're learning, right? So like it's just like there's a lot of different ways to learn, right?
yeah. Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
saying that. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I mean, this is like a kind of small question, but I think maybe people will be wondering whether they need like prior knowledge
Oh, yeah,
before they
yeah.
come. Yeah.
Yeah, I
What do you
think probably
think?
because I said that I know a lot, right? So
Yeah.
no, yeah, I think that's the thing. Um, like again, I was joking. I don't know a lot, but if hypothetically, let's say if I was like a scholar and I knew all these things, and the person sitting next to me knew nothing about Sikhi, I think we would both walk away from there with not exactly the same stuff, but we would walk away with there from there with the same amount of knowledge gained, I
Hmm.
think, right? It's like
Hmm.
it could have been like maybe okay, like let's say if someone introductory is listening to that class about the partition, right? And maybe they never knew the partition existed,
Hmm.
they would have learned everything that there was to know about the partition, right? But let's say the person who's like a scholar and knew what happened, knew everything, he would have learned all those things that I mentioned before, right? The new
Hmm.
perspectives, right? About specific relationships, about who betrayed who, right? Things like that,
Yeah.
about the impact that the partition had on Sikhs to even today in Punjab, right?
Yeah.
About what led up to the partition, right? So those more nuanced things is like within the same presentation, a beginner can take away so much, and someone
Yeah.
who's more advanced can also take away so much. So I think I like I personally think that there's like no prior knowledge necessary. I know they say like Siki 201 is like a little more advanced, but I think you could know nothing, quote
Yeah.
unquote, and still have a great time and learn a lot.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I think that's accurate. When I took Sikhi 201 for the first time,
Hmm.
I think I made a list. I've said this in many Civic Impact podcasts, so sorry if you've heard this before. But I made like a list of stuff that I felt like I needed to read before I got to Civic.
Hmm.
Um, and then just like panicked about it for 4 months and didn't touch a single book. And then I got there and I was like, okay. But I will say like I've been facilitating that particular track for 6 years. Um, and I think every year I learn a ton from the people that I'm like facilitating discussions for, and I watch the like students learning from each other in a way that's like I think it softens you to see that in real time because you're like, oh, I actually can learn something from everybody that I'm meeting, and even if we're disagreeing, there's some kind of um there's some kind of thing that we can arrive at where we're both growing in this discussion. Um, So I think that's a big thing. So thank you for saying that. So don't let don't let yourself be discouraged by thinking that you don't know enough. Um, even for 201, I would say.
Yeah. And I
Um,
would even say like realistically, I didn't do all the readings going into the class. I'm
oh my
sorry.
God, he's actually
I'm
admitting
sorry.
this to me for the first time. Just kidding. I already knew
But
that.
but the thing is like yeah, that did cross my mind a lot, right? Like am I like I'm not making the most of this time, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
going into this class with no like not really knowing. So like for those of you who don't know about how CQ201 or how Civic works, it's like you'll be given like a schedule of sorts where like on this day we'll discuss these things. So
Mhm.
please read X, Y, and Z before coming in just so you can follow the discussion, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of days are okay, I won't say a lot. Some days we came into class without reading those things, right? And like even then it's still like we were able to walk away with so much even without like having that prior knowledge,
Mm.
right? Whereas like yeah, like it's there to help us, but you're always gonna walk away with something and you're always gonna learn something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's well said. I will say hot tip if you're taking tool one is that when you get the reading, just start reading it ahead of time. Um,
Yeah.
and I know that I think we sent it a few weeks before, so like this past year, I think we're going to start sending it a month before so that people can kind of start at least like
Hmm.
getting themselves familiar with the content. Um, I wanted to ask you what you feel like. I sort of said this in the beginning of the podcast, but like, what do you feel like Civic has kind of like, what are the like effects of Civic sort of echoing through your life? Um, how do you feel like it maybe has impacted things? Um, I know for me it was like I was still discovering all of that like a year on.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, what do you feel like has been the impact of Civic on your own life?
Yeah, I think looking back at like me pre-Sidak, I felt like a lot of my views, not only in Sikhi but in life, were already set concretely. I mean, I'm
Mm.
22 years old. I was 22 then. 22 is a very young age, but the way like the world works now, people like I was thinking like, oh, I'm a grown man, like I know what I'm thinking. Like my like whatever I think is not going to change, right? And
Huh.
so even like in the conversation we were having before the podcast, I had mentioned how like my views changed like a week ago or they've changed like recently, right?
Hmm.
And so I think like the most significant impact is like the fact that going there and seeing and just speaking to people and seeing how like I don't have to believe in or I don't have to have such concrete beliefs, and it's actually better for growth for me to have a discussion and be open to um new opinions is like the most significant thing, right? Because like I feel like now even I'm way more open to things. Like even the conversation we were having before, it's like even in something as simple as like not being judgmental, right? Or like being nurturing when like maybe someone makes a mistake, right? Like it's like those like like that viewpoint or my mindset has kind of shifted through Civic. And like I would attribute a good amount of that mindset shift to my experiences at Civic. But yeah, another impact I think after Civic has been the connections made, which is kind of like very different from that. Um, but yeah, also before this podcast, we were talking about other Civicers. You were saying people you've seen recently. I was saying people I've seen as well.
Yeah.
And it is pretty crazy how like um, one of my friends made at Civic is from New Zealand, and it's
Yeah.
like the furthest away it can get from where I live. And I still talk to him on Instagram here and there. Um, and so and like we'll discuss like Sikh stuff and like political stuff. Like he'll ask, "Oh, I saw this. What do you think about this?" Right?
Huh.
And like stuff happened in New Zealand recently. So I asked him like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Right? And it's like I would never have been able to get someone from New Zealand's perspective on something before Civic. And I don't
Yeah.
know if I ever will again, right? Because I don't think I'm ever gonna go live there. I mean, maybe one day, but
Yeah.
I think that like the connections you make are really incredible, right? And like me being in New York, right? Like a lot of people at some point in their lives pass through New York. So I
That's
think
true.
a lot of Civicers, like some of them have reached out to me like, hey, I'm in New York now. Hey, I'm in, right? And it's like the bond you make is really like, it's there for a long time, right? Like, for example, if I go to like a 3-day camp or like if I go to a camp, right? And like 3 years down the line, someone reaches out to me and is like, hey, do you remember me from that camp? Do you want to have lunch? I'm gonna be like, no way,
No.
right? But like at Civic, like you do get to create some sort of relationship with everyone, right? So if it's like 3 years down the line and then someone's like, hey, do you want to have lunch? I'll be like, yeah, it'd be great to catch up, right? Like
Yeah.
it'd be like seeing like a long lost like family member, like
Yeah.
but I think yeah, so that's why I think like the connections you make from Civic are like different than connections you make in other places, but like the network is very valuable for sure.
Yeah.
And it can help a lot in terms of like career stuff too. I mean,
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of friends I made at Civic about like things they're doing in their careers
Mm.
and like ask them for help with mine, right? So it
Yeah.
definitely is great.
Yeah. I think both of those points are really great. And I think the first point to me is like the thing that I feel happening to me every time I go. as a
Hmm.
facilitator. And the thing that is like such a joy to witness every year is a kind of like softening and openness that I think can actually only come when people become um, much like steadier in themselves. And so it's that thing of like, being having your ideas challenged actually like helps you figure out why you believe what you believe or like
Hmm.
um yeah, and I think at a time where it's really hard for people who disagree with each other to talk about it because we actually like have so many ways to avoid that friction. Um I think Civic is a really like wonderful space in which we can practice that and like actually hone that skill.
Yeah.
Um, and I think one of the things I think I actually stole, I mean, I didn't steal it, but I stole the reference of this Saki from a former 201er. We had talked about at the end of Sidak when we were doing our reflection discussion as 201. And there's this idea of like, once you can sort of hone those skills or like cultivate virtues within yourself, what does it look like to scatter? And it's that Sakhi where the Guru says like goes to this town where everybody's very virtuous and says like, I want you guys to scatter. But just
Hmm.
before he had gone to this town where everybody was kind of all over the place, and he was like, you guys should just stay here. And which is like a very poor telling of that Sakhi. But but the point is, one of the things that Civic does for me this many years on is it shows me that like not to be dramatic, but like that another world is possible and that if in that space people with such differing backgrounds and careers and opinions and life experiences can get together and form bonds the way that they always do and also like become more vast in how they engage with each other, then like that kind of disposition can be carried out and like can ripple through our sangats when we go back home. Um, and it gives me like a lot of hope, which I think maybe is cheesy, but I am prone to like doom scrolling and being sort of online and being like, oh my God, what's sick Twitter saying now? So I think it's good. I think it's a really good thing to remind ourselves that like that kind of environment is possible and we've actually been a part of it and we can cultivate it wherever we are.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. This is a thing I've been thinking about. I don't know, probably you can tell. But I guess I wanted to sort of end by asking you, there's like two ways this can go. One of them is describe Civic in one word or line, which to me feels like a high pressure situation. And then the other option is there anything else you want to say to somebody who's thinking about attending Civic or anything else you want to say about Civic more generally to kind of close out our conversation?
Yeah. I mean, I did see when you sent me the questions, I saw the one word question. And the one word I thought of was just like unique, but I was like, that seems too cliche. So I started searching up like synonyms for unique. So I think whatever, like whoever's listening to this, whatever the most interesting sounding synonym to like unique or different is, I think take that as your one word.
Really good.
Uh, but yeah, and then I think what else? I guess like my closing remarks would be if you are considering applying to Civic, I would say apply. Like I don't think me and as well as all the other people I've talked to from the past Civic, and all the people I've ever known who went to Civic, even people who have told me that they're not sure if they enjoyed it much, no one ever had any regrets about it, right?
Mm,
Like everyone walked away with something, right? And I think it's important not to put too many expectations into it, right? Because like I think when we tend to put expectations into things, they tend to fly by, right? Like
yeah.
if I'm if I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna go to Civic because I'm gonna learn X, Y, and Z, or because I'm
Mm,
gonna let's say like okay, let's say like I met Santbir Virji at a camp. Let's say if I was like, oh, I want to go there just to talk to him, right? Like if my whole goal is just to talk to him about this thing, right? Like I'm not gonna really take anything else out of it, right? So I
mm,
think it's important to push yourself to go, right? It's definitely something different. It's not necessarily go with someone you know.
mhm,
I think if I come again, which I would love to come again, I might try to come by myself, right? Because
yeah.
I think without having that friend to rely on, it really pushes you even more out of your comfort zone, and you really have to, like build those connections with new people.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say I would encourage everyone to apply. Um, you can go by yourself. Most people come by themselves. Don't have that be a reason why you don't want to go. You
Yeah.
don't have to be extremely knowledgeable about Sikhi beforehand. You don't have to be Amritari. You don't have to be. You don't have to wear a keski. There's no yeah, like prerequisite in that sense, right? Like anyone is welcome. And I think you'll see that when you come, the community is truly accepting.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Really nice, really beautiful. Um, what am I supposed to say? Oh, yes. If you guys have any questions, if you want to learn more about Sidak, you can go to sikri.org/Sidak. And if you have questions, you can email sidak@sikri.org and someone will hopefully have an answer for you. Thank you so much, Ikroop. This was such a lovely conversation. And thank you all for joining us. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Sidak is a transformative leadership development program for young Sikh adults aged 18 to 39. Engage in an immersive 2-week experience that fosters connection, growth, and a deeper understanding of Sikhi.
You were listening to Sickcast by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.